Welcome back. I am Kyra. Let's welcome Mary to the Globe Girl podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Kyra. Hi. Nice to be here.
Awesome. I'm so glad to have you here because as my audience maybe has listened to me talk about this a love of golf that I have, I try to slide it into every conversation where I can. Now I'm not that great now at all. I will tell you.
That's okay.
But I definitely am so excited to be talking to you today and just how you can help our community because I have like so many questions. And before we dive on in, I'll let you tell everybody listening and watching who you are and what you do.
Great. Thank you so much. My name's Mary Boecker. I am a golfer. I only started golfing in actually 2020, so I'm still relatively new golfer. And like you, I just completely fell in love with it. And after a couple of years, I realized that I didn't have a lot of golf friends. So in 2022, I started a company called Queen City Links Ladies, and it was a simple concept. I just wanted to have clinics and driving range meetups and just another place for women beginner golfers to go. And yeah, there was a little selfish motivation there. I was like, I need to meet more golf friends so that I can play more often, but also just equality and inclusion values. And I just saw how male dominated the sport is
Mm.
and what a great opportunity it is to get more women out there because, as you know, there's so many benefits to playing golf. So that was 3 years ago, and then things have just grown and evolved, since then, and it's been a pleasure, and now I'm here talking to you, so
I love that because I think one of the things you said that is so true. It's trying to find people to play golf with,
yes.
right? there's this thing about like, oh, I want to play golf and nobody else wants to play or nobody's interested or something. I'm just actually going to ask this right off the bat because I feel
Sure.
like we start with talking about the misconceptions.
Yes.
And let's just start there. Let's talk about some of the misconceptions that women have and it holds them back from like learning how to play the game.
Yes. Well, I think that one of the barriers is the visibility, right? There's on course golfers, it's about 20% women to 80% male.
Mhm.
And you see that when you go to the driving range, when you go to the golf course, and certainly on TV, the men's PGA events are much more elevated and more media than the women's, although there's been a lot of improvement in that
Mhm.
area. And I think cost, is another thing. Golf is a relatively expensive sport. And we know that women in general are, paid, I don't know if it's 79 cents on the dollar or something like that
Mhm.
to men. So cost is a barrier. And then I think just the network support and the knowledge, because yeah, if your friends, your peers, people close to you aren't familiar with it and don't do it, how are you going to naturally get that knowledge if you don't seek it out proactively yourself? So I think those are some of the barriers for sure. And if you
Yeah.
agree, yeah.
Oh, for sure. Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. Because I feel like it's so funny. I have a neighbor who I actually did not know. Well, she doesn't particularly play. She drives the cart. Her husband plays.
Okay.
And
Yes.
I went over like to her house a couple weeks ago and I was like, "Oh yeah." I said, "Oh, I know that your husband plays golf." And I was like, "Do you play by chance?" And she was like, okay, let's just say I've got clubs and I've got outfits and I've got shoes and I like to drive the cart. But she was just like, but I mean, I don't really like do anything. And I was like, no, no, like we have to stop that now. Said she was like, well, I'm not like good. And I said, okay, that's okay. But here's what we can do is we have a course like 10 minutes from our house. I was like, we can just start going to the driving range together like, let's
Yes.
start by going there. And I said, and you can wear your cute outfit and we can get a cart and we can pretend we can just start. We just have to start
Yes.
somewhere. And I think that's like a thing that a lot of people, you hear from a lot of people is like you said, it's the cost. Like people don't want to like, they're like, I don't want to buy it. Like, isn't it expensive? And I'm like, well, yeah, it can be as you continue
Yes.
to grow in it. I said, but you can actually start with like $300 and get a nice set of clubs just to begin with. And
Exactly.
yeah, and I think, like, what you're doing is, like, so awesome because it's like you're giving that safe space to women to say, like, "It's okay if you don't know
Right.
how to do it."
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's the thing, I mean, that's the issue that I had for, like, so long is that, like, for probably 2 years, I had the clubs that my dad bought me for my birthday, and
That's
I
so
was
calm. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Mary, and I was
Mhm.
so ashamed and so afraid of looking like an idiot. I was like, "Oh my god,
Yes.
like, I can't go out because, like, what if I don't connect to the ball and I just swing it and it looks crazy?" And I was like, "Okay, you gotta get over yourself because there are other people out there who are, like, experiencing the same thing." And I think for
Yes.
women, it's more real for us because like you mentioned, yeah, there are men out there and you don't wanna look like you don't belong.
Right. Because you already do. You with the ratio being 1 to 5, you already stand out on the golf course. So
Mhm.
then you just feel like you're standing out even more when you don't know what you're doing, or maybe you do make, a little faux pas or a mistake or something that you just feel like it's more amplified. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that is a big misconception, is that you have to be good. The truth is that most beginners, at least beginner ladies, the scores that I see are, now there's maybe some golf like terminology or lingo, right? So par means that you're even for how many strokes you're supposed to take in a given round of golf, right?
Mhm.
So for if par is 72, a lot of beginners I see, their average scores are 120. So well over par. And obviously in golf, you want to lower scores. That's kind of the idea there. So
Yeah.
many beginners start out with very high scores. And the misconception is you got to be a good player. And um, I guess the important thing I would emphasize is it's not as important to be good. It's important to keep up pace of play and just
Mhm.
keep moving through the golf course from hole to hole, because that's really the thing that makes you stand out, or is a golf etiquette rule that, you know, people don't like people who are slow players, but you can play bad fast and still have a beautiful beautiful round.
Yes, and you can still have fun. Like, I think, like,
Yes.
that's the important thing is, like, it is learning something new and
Yes.
something that is very let's see, how do I because, like, I grew up watching golf. Like, I always watched golf with my dad,
Okay.
and my dad always like, he always played, and I will tell you when I was younger and growing up, like, I seriously thought, like, as a woman, like, "Why would I play?"
Right.
And then, like, when the pandemic happened, and it was just like yeah, then I was like, "Why wouldn't I play?"
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
then I had more time to, like, watch, and I got to watch, like, all the tournaments versus, like, just kinda coming in on, like, the weekend. I got to start
Yes.
on Thursdays, and, like, then it's like I just, like, really fell in love with it, and I was
Yes.
like, "Oh my god," like, I understand everything, and then I remember my husband saying to me, he's like, "Now what do you exactly like about golf?" And I was like, oh my god," like, it is a sport that is so mentally, like, stimulating because
Yes.
you look at these people, they're, like, really they're the ones responsible for what happens. It's an
Yes.
individual sport, there's not yeah, they have a caddy, but there's no team, there's
Right.
nobody, like, out there they're not taking turns hitting the ball with somebody. Like, it's, like, very but it's at the same time, it's like you're watching as a observer, like, what club is he gonna choose? And
Exactly.
what club are they gonna choose? Are they gonna be able to hit the distance? Like, when you see the course and you're like, are they gonna miss the water? Is it gonna hit the
The
water? And
suspense and the pressure and the story, the
yeah.
backstory. I love watching Full Swing. And my story is actually, it's a little different than yours, but similar in the way that, so first, I didn't grow up with golf. I Nobody in my immediate family played golf. Some people in my extended family, but I had the same thought as you. Why would I ever play golf? And
Mhm.
when I graduated college, I was in a social group with the young professionals in the
Mhm.
network where I worked. And so we did a lot of things. We went rock climbing, we went hiking, we went to baseball games. And one of our activities was let's go play 9 holes at the local golf course.
Mhm.
And that was 20 years ago. And that day, I'll never forget it. I couldn't get the ball off the ground. I was so frustrated. I had never swung a golf club before.
Mhm.
I played field hockey and I considered myself very athletic. I was a runner
Mhm.
and a biker and did high intensity hit training and things like that. But golf, I was like, this is so hard and frustrating. And I was hot, I was tired, I was hungry. I was like, it must have only been about 2 hours or 2.5 hours that we
Mhm.
played. But at the end of it, I said, forget this. It's not for me, you know. And
Mhm.
then just similar to your story after COVID, I was like, okay, it was for sure in the media a lot more. One thing I'll recommend to people is that your local parks and recreation department may have golf courses as part of,
Mhm.
the municipality, and that's a great place to find beginner clinics. And in my case, I found a 4-part beginner series that worked on driver irons,
Mhm.
wedges, and also putting. So every week for 4 weeks, you got a different part of the bag of golf clubs, and you got to use a different club and learn about that. So that was a great opportunity. I took that in 2021, and then in 2022 started taking lessons and doing Queen City Links ladies and bringing other women to these learning opportunities and expanding.
Mhm.
But one interesting story is that after I was playing golf about 2 years, I felt really good, really comfortable. Again, I wasn't playing great, but I felt like I go to the golf course, I know what I'm doing, I fit in, I felt comfortable. And I work in supply chain, so Queen City
Mhm.
Links ladies is not my full-time job at the moment and wasn't at the time. So I work for a big company, and there was a woman leader who she sent an email to a few ladies, probably about 10 of us. And she said, ladies, I have this member guest tournament in 2 weeks, and I lost my partner. Like, my partner's sick or my partner can't play. I really want to play in this event. I just need somebody who kind of knows how to play. You don't even need to be good, you just need to be fun, and you have to have an official USGA handicap. And that was 2 years in, and I didn't know what a handicap was, and I
Mhm.
said
Mhm.
like, ran to a friend that I felt knew a lot of golf. I was like, "What's a handicap?" And he said, "Well, you have to keep track of your scores, and you have to enter them into the app." And I was so like, "How can I get a handicap super quick?" But I ended up missing out on that opportunity. But I think the point is, this woman, she was somebody I respected, admired. I didn't know her well, but I was like, "This is such a great opportunity to spend like
Yes.
2, 3, 4 hours with her an evening, have some drinks, and it would
Mhm.
be unique." Like, I would get the chance because no one else on that distribution played golf, or if they did, they didn't have a handicap because guess what? Nobody replied to that. She even sent
Mhm.
a follow-up asking again, and nobody replied to it. So I still think about that 3 years later to this day, that
Mm.
golf gives you access. I mean, the
Yes.
other benefits that you talked about, so physical fitness, being
Mhm.
outdoors in beautiful settings, getting you
Mhm.
can play golf courses anywhere in the world where you
Mhm.
vacation or you travel. If you
Mhm.
travel for work, networking, right? You're in
Yeah.
close proximity and quarters with 3 other people generally
Mhm.
for an extended amount of time.
Mhm.
And I think personal achievement, like, you have to really grow to love it and really
Mhm.
want it for yourself. You shouldn't do it for the fringe benefits, but wow, like, the access that you get to the people who
Exactly.
already know how to play golf and are playing
Mhm.
golf is
Yep.
invaluable.
I think that's so I'm so glad you pointed that out because I think I was talking to somebody and they were like, just the access, like the deals are done on the golf course. I mean, that
Yes.
is like where the men in the companies
Yeah.
are going to make deals. And if you're just a woman and you know how to play, because most times, unfortunately, it's like they don't expect that you're going to know how to play.
Right. If you don't work it into conversation, it's hard for them
Mhm,
to know. But once you go to the driving range, get yourself some clubs, get out there a
mhm.
couple times, you'll know enough to be a little dangerous and work your way into those conversations. I
Yeah.
will say I think that is one other misconception that deals are done on the golf course.
Mhm,
So that is a caution, I think, because on the golf course, you wanna be chatting about small talk, and as you said, it's
mhm,
mentally tough, so you wanna be
mhm,
kind of calm, certain, confident, focused on your game, and you wanna have small talk to kinda get to know your playing partners, but
mhm,
that builds your relationship with the
mhm.
people that you're playing with, and then the business gets done because
Then
they
you
learn those
you
little things about
yeah.
you, right? Yeah,
Yes, yeah,
yeah.
they're like, "Oh, I didn't know you knew you know the game."
Yes, exactly,
'Cause
exactly.
unfortunately, I think unfortunately, it's always that way with women in sports because, like, like, I mean, I've always watched sports and I watch a lot of different sports, and whenever someone's like, "Oh, you know," I'm like, "Yeah, like, yeah,
Yep.
duh, like, who doesn't?" Like,
Yeah,
yes.
I've had people like, "Oh, you know that?" "Yeah, I
Mhm.
do." So
Oh,
it's a great opportunity to kinda show off your stuff.
exactly.
And I think other misconceptions, I think one thing I hear people say is like, "Buy yourself a cheap set of clubs," because you don't know if you're gonna like it or not.
Mm.
So, I don't know if that's the advice, and cheap is different, like, relatively speaking, people have different budgets. What I always recommend is and I have this information on my blog and as part of my beginner checklist, but
Mhm,
you don't need to start with a full 14 club bag
mhm,
with all of those clubs. You really only need 4 or 5 clubs as a beginner. So it is best to go to a fitter or talk with a certified golf professional,
mhm,
somebody who's part of the PGA or the LPGA professionals,
mhm,
because they can help you get into a set of clubs that really fits you well. Because one thing that happens is women will either use their husband's old clubs or maybe go to the thrift shop and get a set of clubs, which remember, 1 in 5 women are golfers. So, from
right,
an
yeah,
equipment standpoint, the
yeah,
equipment that you see that's out there for resale is going to be like 90% men, right?
mhm,
And the men's clubs are heavier, they're longer, and they're just going to be harder to hit for a female frame, which on average, right, is going to be smaller, but not always necessarily. Like, there's some women who are super muscular and very athletic. Maybe you run marathons, maybe you do strength training.
mhm,
In that case, maybe a men's set is gonna fit you. So that's why I always advise people, be careful about that advice of just go get any golf clubs and just
mhm,
start. If you take a lesson, a lot of times the golf pro will have some different sets. You can always call ahead and ask, but
mhm,
a lot of
mhm,
times, even for your first lesson, you don't necessarily have to bring clubs. If you call ahead and say, like, I'm a true beginner, I don't have clubs, can I borrow some? And they more than likely have access to a few different sets that something might work for you. And then you get a better idea of what to
mhm.
buy. So,
Mhm. I love that. Yes, that's great advice. And so let's talk about what you do and the beginner golf guide and the checklist because I will tell you all, I downloaded Mary's checklist and it's awesome. And I just love the series of emails that keep coming to tell, like, that helps you to get started, even about the apparel. Like, I just think that's cool because I think people do believe that they can wear and this is not to be disrespectful to anyone, but I do think people think that they can wear like tennis gear out
yeah.
to the golf to the golf course.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, by the way. That's kind of exciting that you've been kind of reading and looking at that. But the beginner golf checklist, I made it exactly for the reasons and the things that you're saying. So I find that total beginners, they need a little bit of orientation to
Mhm,
some of the golf terms. What are the clubs? What should I be looking for? The scoring terms
mhm,
specifically, and the I tried to give sort of a good overview that if you did book a lesson or you did go to a golf driving range, you would have a little bit of an idea of what's going on. Because I do see, I'm part of some women's beginner golf Facebook groups, and I also get messages and DMs. And actually, a common concern from women is, what do I need to know before I book my lesson with a golf pro?
mm,
So they're really even looking for all of that basic information because they don't want to sound like, like an idiot or stupid in front of the golf pro. And I feel like that's a shame because in some ways it's a little bit of some of our cultural dynamic, maybe between men and women, and some things that are exclusively male and exclusively female. But I think my message is all the golf professionals that I've interacted with, the certified professionals, have been super respectful. They want more women in the game. In fact, women is the second largest or second fastest growing demographic according to the USGA. So kids is the first
Mhm.
fastest growing demographic, and then it's women. And, that's their job to answer these questions and to support you. So if you do run into anybody who gives you a bad vibe when you ask a question, find another instructor because there's a good one out there, I promise you. And I always start my clinics, my driving range events, and any of my on course events with like, there are no silly questions, right? If you
Yes.
have a question, just ask. Somebody else in the group is probably thinking the same thing,
Mhm.
and, that's really what we're about is knowledge is power, information is power, and in this case, like in this little sliver of the world of golf, we have a situation where a lot of the men, they have networks just natural for their friends, their colleagues, and all that stuff
Mhm.
that golf. And not every guy does, right? But it's a generalization. And on average, women just don't have the knowledge or people passing down that information. So just ask. And also, yes, go to the blog, download some of the resources that I've created because I'm creating that specifically for the
Mhm.
women that are coming into golf brand new. And by the way, like 0 to 5 years of playing golf is considered a beginner. So even myself, I'm still technically a beginner until the end of the season.
Good goal,
But I
but
think
now
that's the perfect reason why people should, can learn from me because I still remember what it was like to be a super
exactly.
beginner. And
Yeah.
I'm like, let's break it down.
You're like on the journey. Yeah, you're like as someone always tells me, like in the journey when you're looking to do something, find somebody who's a few years ahead of you
Yes.
and learn from them. And I
Yes.
think that's what you offer for the women in your not only in your community, but virtually as well. So there's
Yes.
opportunity. So if you're listening and you're saying like, oh my gosh, Mary sounds so awesome and I want to learn more, like she has opportunities for you to learn virtually as well with her. So let's talk about golf leagues
Yes.
because and people might be saying, okay, what is a golf league? And why do you think it's important? And how do people know when they're ready to join into a league?
Great questions, great questions. And I'll tie it back also to our the misconceptions that you were asking about. I think that one thing is people say, practice, practice, practice a lot, and practice makes perfect. We hear that all the time.
Mm,
Golf is another area where that's not necessarily true. And that's why golf leagues are so important. So many women feel nervous to get out to leave the driving range. Like the driving range is fun, it's safe. You hit any club, you can do a lot of different shots and you're not trying to score. Maybe you track some things, but it's a little safer. Women think of it as a little bit safer and they're often hesitant to get on the course.
mhm,
So that's where I say no because what happened in my case was I went to the driving range quite a bit at the beginning, a lot, that was great, I felt so good there, and then when I got out on the golf course, I said, "Oh, no, this is so frustrating," you have different shots that you have to play, like
mhm,
a chip or a pitch shot when you're getting into that close range to the hole. So I think from a misconceptions like practice makes perfect or you have to hit the ball really, really far, that neither one of those is true. You need to get on the course. That is the best way for you to learn by doing,
mhm,
because at the driving range, you're just not going to have the opportunity to know what the shots are that you need when you're playing on the course. So it's
mhm,
like you kind of have to play the course and then see what shots you need and then practice as
mhm,
well. Um, so I think that getting on the course is so much safer and you get so much more out of it when you can go to the course on a regular basis and at a regular time with a regular group of people. And you not only get to see your own improvement, sometimes as a beginner, it's like, oh, I want to play this course and I want to play this course and I want to play this course. And you try to like play all the courses, but you don't get to see your own improvement over time because golf is the only sport that course to course, there's no standard court, right? Like a
Mhm,
football field is 100 or 120 yards. A basketball court has a standard size, a pickleball court has a standard size, so no matter
mhm.
where you play pickleball, right, you're playing the same court. Golf is
Right.
different. Every hole is a different length, has different
Mhm,
hazards, has different cuts of grass or types of grass. And
mhm,
so that's why it's so important to just get out on the golf course, on your local course.
mhm,
And getting into a league enables you to play the same course every week for 10, 12, maybe even 16 weeks during a season. And it sounds a little intimidating because the leagues sometimes they'll keep score, they'll keep a ranking of like which teams are ranked at the highest, but I think that just gives us something to play for and some it gives us a read on where are we today, and it gives us a great way to gauge how we're improving over time.
mhm,
So don't be afraid to get out on the golf course. Don't be afraid to join a league. I think the league is way better than just going sporadically with different people to different golf courses at different times. So if you can, find a league, find a beginner league, and do it before you're ready. Do it
mhm,
before you think you're ready.
mhm.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
a big lesson for me.
Yeah, no, I think everything that you said has been so good because all those things are things that I'm like, yep, she's right. I should, yeah, like, I mean, I should do that. I should go do that more often. I need to find, yeah, I need to do those
Yeah.
things because
And
it's very daunting.
it is. And the other thing that's a little bit of a barrier, I think, in this online and digital age, golf courses are still kind of in the phone call, show up in person and ask about things. Like
Mhm,
as far as online, you can get the golf course, their hours, their phone number, maybe their scorecard, maybe some pictures of the course. But
mhm,
golf courses, or at least their owners, they're not into like developing their crazy websites. They don't need to. The golfers are coming and they're paying. The golfers know
mhm.
where the golf courses are. So
Right.
this is a barrier because when a woman wants to join a golf league, how
Mhm.
does she know that the league exists, right?
Right.
So
Yep.
you do have to call your local golf course, ask to speak with the pro or ask, "Hey, is there a women's golf league here?" And they will often connect you with it's often not a golf course employee, it's a regular, a
Mhm,
woman who's running the league and she's not, associated or paid by the golf course. She's just what's called the league coordinator,
mhm,
and she does all the scheduling and recruiting of members and takes the payments and things like that. So that's another barrier is like information.
mhm,
You do have to call or go there or know somebody who's in a league. And I'm working on figuring out a way to kind of change all that and make that information more available.
mhm.
I'm doing it locally here to see how it
Yes.
goes. Yeah.
Mm. No, I think that's a really it's so true because when you started to say that, I was like, "You know what? That's right." Like, every golf course that, like, is in my area, like, the websites are actually almost kinda sketch, and you're like, I mean, so I have to ride there, like, I'm gonna have to drive there to ask you questions about it or,
Yes.
or, like, whatever, but yeah, you're so
Yeah.
right.
And
Okay.
even my local golf pro, like when I email him, it might be a few days before he responds. So I
Mhm.
always recommend phone call. If you want
Yeah.
to know if there's a league by you, literally like go in Google, search golf courses, look
Mhm.
at the golf courses that are nearby you and make phone calls and ask, "Hey, I want to speak to the head golf pro," and ask, "Is there a ladies league or is there a
Mhm.
beginner league that I can join?" And then they're going to take it from there. They will know how to get you to the right
Mhm.
person to get you into the right spot.
Gotcha. Yes. No, that is great. Okay, so Mary, why don't you tell people how they can find you and connect to you so they can get a hold of all this great information that you have to share with women?
Thanks. I think www.queencitylynxladies.com. /beginner checklist. That's going to be a great way for people who, if you're, this is really your first kind of exposure to golf, like download that beginner checklist and you'll be on your way. I'm also on Instagram. It's Queen City Links Ladies is the handle. So I'm on there quite a lot, and Facebook and LinkedIn as well.
Okay, awesome. Yes, and make sure when you're at the website, also make sure you sign up so you can
Yes.
get all the information because I have, like I said, it's great. It keeps coming and there's more tips and information that will help you really become comfortable before you step out. All right, this has been great. So, Mary, we're going to transition. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. I'm actually going to ask you a bonus one too. Yeah, I know. I got a bonus one now. We're gonna start with a two-parter. How do you start and end your day?
All right. Well, I start my day at 5 a.m. I get up and I put on some workout clothes and I turn the coffee machine on. I feed the cat and I go into a little area in my house and I do a 20-minute, I got to sweat. I have to sweat. I either do yoga or leg strength training or like a full body or core strength workout. I'm a big, like, I don't have a Peloton, but I subscribe to there
Mm, yeah.
because I find the workouts are good. It's like
Yep.
5, 10, 20-minute workouts.
Mhm,
And I really feel like starting the morning off with a sweat is good. And then I have some coffee and water and do the Wordle and start getting the kids up, making them lunches and getting them off and running. So
mhm.
that is part of my routine. And then for ending my day, usually after I get the kids to bed, I unwind with a Netflix series. Right now, I'm watching Apple Cider Vinegar. Oh, I just
Oh,
finished Severance last week, and that
oh,
I'm hooked on. So I usually watch like 30 minutes, maybe an hour of
mhm.
TV and fold a little bit of laundry. So,
Awesome. All right, the second one is what's a goal or intention you have set for yourself this year?
okay, on two fronts there, I think from a golf perspective, because we talked about golf so much, I am working consistently with one instructor this year to
Mhm.
develop more power in my golf swing.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's an intention that I have for this year. And then the second thing with Queen City Links Ladies, you mentioned it before, but the blog, I started the blog about this time last year.
Mhm,
And for a while, I wasn't super regular with it. But then, you know, come summer, I began to do every week. So this year, my intention is like 90% of the weeks, I'm going to be putting a blog post out. And
mhm,
I'm just really solidifying the consistency and commitment to that because I can
mhm.
see how it's helping, like, in my messages, in my DMs, I'm like, "Oh, this is" it's so
Mhm.
fulfilling for me to hear people say that it was helpful or have someone, ask a question and give me a great idea for the next blog
Uh-huh.
post. So I love that engagement, and I'm committed to being consistent.
Awesome. I love that. All right. And where are you currently finding inspiration?
So last year, I continued it into this year, is I've been on a little bit of a self-help book kick. So one of the books I read recently is called The Gap and the Gain by Dr. Dan Sullivan. And this is such an inspiring book because a lot of times in life we're so focused on like achieving what we want and we constantly think about how far we are away from where we want to go. And this book talks all about like that's the gap, but he reminds us that we have to be regularly thinking about our gains, and that is comparing yourself now to where you were, whether it's yesterday, last week, or a year ago. And when you think and reflect on that on a regular basis, it's actually so empowering and inspiring to do that than always thinking about the gap. You do have to think about the gap sometimes, right? About the
Mhm.
future and what you want and where you want to be. But give yourself credit, and that empowers you so much to just keep going and keep driving forward. So that's really where I'm getting a lot of inspiration.
Awesome. Alright, my bonus question is, who's your favorite PGA golfer and LPGA golfer?
Okay, wow. So LPGA golfer is going to be Charlie Hull. I just love her no BS
Yeah.
attitude. She is exactly herself. She shows up as
Mhm,
herself. Also, she's a runner and she strength trains, and you can really see it in her swing and in her power and in her body. So I love her athleticism and
mhm,
also a little bit of sass or attitude, I
mhm,
guess.
mhm,
And she is who she is and she's not ashamed of it. And I actually aspire to be more like that all the time. It's like I just need to
mhm.
be who I am, and that is who I am to the world. I love that about her. And
Mhm.
also obviously she's very talented.
Right.
So that's for LPGA. For the PGA, I think that's a little tougher. I We have been watching Full Swing and the season 3. I think the mental going through with the mental coach, the name is escaping me right now, my goodness. But Gary Woodland's story is also
Oh,
really,
yeah, for
really
sure.
crazy with the
Yeah,
the brain
yeah.
tumor that he had,
Mhm,
and that has been
mhm.
I mean, and just last week he played and he was,
He played
yeah,
very well last week. Yeah, it
I
was
think he came in 2nd,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I think yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome to watch. I don't know, was it Wyndham Clark that was
Yes,
his
that's who
yeah,
it was.
yeah,
Thank
his
you.
yeah.
Yeah, Wyndham Clark's story, and that touched me because just with his mother passing
Right.
and
Mhm,
the you could really see it was so palpable, his
mhm.
emotion, and I think that's so relatable that so
Yeah.
many of us in life, the emotion is right there below the surface and
Mhm,
it comes out. And believe me, we've talked a ton about golf, Kyra, and I hope that your listeners go out and do it and try it, but they will find that it's challenging. It's not easy.
mhm,
You got to put
mhm,
in the work and you got to put in the time,
mhm,
but just start. And eventually those gains will build over time, even if you can't devote a ton of time. I mean, I work, I have kids. It's really sometimes only once a week for 2 hours or so that I get to do it, but the gains kind of layer on. So I hope they get out there and do it. But I think Wyndham's story
mhm,
is like incredible, his mindset and the change that he
mhm,
had when
mhm.
working with that mental coach.
Yeah, I would
No,
agree
no,
with
go
you
ahead.
because I think when he first came on the scene and I was like, I don't know if I like him." Actually, I was annoyed that when he beat
Yeah,
Rory McIlroy that year because I'm a big Rory fan, and when he beat him for the,
that
PGA,
was tough.
yeah, it was yeah, a lot
That's
well, look,
tough.
all of last season, the majors were kinda tough. For Rory,
Yes.
but when I saw his story on Full Swing and I thought like, "Oh, wow, like, okay, I get it." And it takes a
Yes.
lot for someone to admit that they need help, and especially in a game, and especially athletes, because a lot of times they don't get the mental health assistance that they need. So, yeah, so seeing that, I was like,
Mhm.
"I feel you. Like, I get it. I understand him now, and I like this." And anybody who hasn't I like even think like if you're a person who you're like, "Oh, I don't watch golf, I don't really get it." But, like, if you were to even just take time to watch some of the stories on Full Swing,
Oh, yeah.
they're just so, like they just pull you in, and you get to know the people, you get to know, like, the struggles, and you get to see how similar they are to you and people you know, and things
Yes.
that they've gone through. So I think, like, that's
Yes.
pretty yeah, it's a great show. Now
Very compelling. I
I
think the
will
season's just gotten better and better,
yeah,
so
I
it's
will
good.
say this last season I had stalled out because I'm not quite ready yet to watch the Rory episode.
I see. Yeah.
I'm holding out for, like, next week at the Masters. He's playing well this season, holding out that he's gonna go ahead and get that next major, and then I know in my head, like, "Oh, he's won, so I can watch
Yes.
this
Then
now."
you can watch it. I
But
love
I've
that approach. That's a good
yeah,
one.
but I've been pretty much like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna finish the season. We are, but just let's just ease on into the
Let's just
Masters
ease.
next week and see."
Yeah. I like
Yeah.
that approach. That's a good idea.
Well, Mary, I want to say thank you so much for taking time and sharing with the community today. I feel like this is something that I love to talk about, something I want more women to get involved in. And sometimes you need to have the right person in the room to encourage and to say, like, it really is something you can do. So
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to leave our audience with like 3 takeaways. If someone's out there listening and they're like, okay, Mary, what are the 3 things you tell me to do?
Okay. So the takeaways. So golf gives you physical fitness, mental toughness. It gives you personal growth and personal challenge that you know, I just think in life when you reach a certain age, like what is there else, right? Like
Mhm.
this is a treasure trove of that. You can go so, so deep with it. Number two, you can do it. I mean, it's going to be hard, but it's there for you and nothing is stopping you, nothing is holding you back, and I'm here to help for sure, and I'm sure that there's more that I can provide because 'cause I'm just getting started, hopefully there's more. And I think, starting with that beginner checklist, if that's your first step, then I'm super happy that you're gonna be here and welcoming you and cheering you on. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, I want to say thank you so much, Mary. And you can always come back and see us here in the future. But kudos to you for everything that you're doing to support the game and to get more women into the game.
Thank you so much, Kyra. I'm cheering you on too. I love your podcasts and I listened to that one that was about mental acuity and it was awesome. And I think that what you're doing is amazing. So I'm so happy to be here and really honored to be a guest. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back.